What if the CEO of a major fast food chain walked into one of his own restaurants and discovered corruption right under his nose? A ruthless manager exploiting employees, stealing wages. But what he uncovered next went all the way to the top. This isn't just a fight for justice. It's a battle to take back an entire company. And it all started with one visit, one overheard conversation, and a decision that would change everything. The sun hung high over the city of Springfield, casting long shadows as the lunch rush began. Families, office workers, and construction crews filled the sidewalks, some heading toward Mike's Burgers, a well-known fast food chain in the area. Mike Carter, the CEO of Mike's Burgers, stepped out of his car, adjusting his sunglasses as he looked up at the bright red and gold sign above the restaurant's entrance. This was just one of the many locations under his company's umbrella. But today, he wasn't here as the CEO. Today, he was just another customer. Beside him, his 10-year-old son, Jake, fidgeted with the hem of his T-shirt. "Can I get extra fries this time?" Jake asked, looking up at his dad. Mike chuckled, ruffling the boy's hair. "Let's see if they're any good first." Unlike the boardrooms and investor meetings he was used to, Mike preferred moments like these, stepping into one of his own restaurants, blending in with the crowd, and watching his business from a customer's point of view. This was how he learned what was working, and more importantly, what wasn't. As he pushed open the glass door, a wave of familiar scents hit him. Freshly grilled burgers, crispy fries, and a hint of cleaning solution lingering from a morning prep. The place was busy, just as it should be on a Saturday afternoon. Customers chatted at their tables. The cash register chimed with each transaction, and the kitchen hummed with the steady rhythm of a well-oiled machine. But something felt off. Mike had been in enough restaurants, his own and others, to recognize the energy of a well-run establishment. There should have been a buzz, a liveliness among the staff. But here there was a stiffness. The workers moved with efficiency, but there was no ease in their motions. No one joked, no one laughed. There were no friendly exchanges behind the counter. Mike's gaze swept across the room, taking in the details. Employees kept their heads down, their conversations hushed. A young man at the fry station stole nervous glances toward the back. A server flinched slightly when a sharp voice barked orders from the kitchen, and at the register stood a young woman. Her name tag read Emily. She was polite, her tone professional, but there was a tension in the way she spoke. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. As Mike and Jake stepped into line, Mike watched as Emily took an order from an elderly woman. The moment the woman walked away, Emily's shoulders dropped slightly, and she exhaled, almost as if bracing herself for the next customer. When it was their turn, Emily quickly put on her customer-friendly expression. "Welcome to Mike's Burgers. What can I get for you today?" Mike noted the tightness in her voice, the way her fingers hovered just a little too long over the register buttons, as if afraid of making a mistake. He ordered their meals casually, keeping his tone light. "Fries have been good today?" Emily hesitated, then gave a quick nod. "Yes, sir." Not much of an answer. She handed him the receipt with carefully measured politeness. "Your order number is 37. It'll be ready in a few minutes." Mike took the receipt, but his mind was elsewhere. Something wasn't right, and he was going to find out what. While Jake settled into a booth, Mike excused himself. "I'll be right back." He moved toward the restrooms at the back of the restaurant, walking at a normal pace but keeping his senses sharp. The closer he got to the employee area, the more he picked up on the quiet murmurs from the staff. And then, just as he reached the restroom door, he heard it, a sharp, cutting voice from beyond the employee break room. "You think you matter here? Look at yourself. I could replace you by tomorrow." Mike stopped. The voice carried an air of unchecked authority, the kind of tone that didn't fear consequences. He knew that kind of manager. He had fired that kind of manager before. Leaning slightly, he caught the edge of the conversation. "I don't care how long you worked here," the voice continued. "You either step up or step out." Then silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. Mike remained where he was, his jaw tightening. This was why he visited his restaurants unannounced. He had seen too many people abuse their positions, and now, standing outside that door, he had a feeling he was about to uncover another one. Mike remained still, his back against the cool tile wall outside the break room, his ears sharp, absorbing every word. The voice was unmistakable, gruff, condescending, laced with kind of authority that expected no resistance. Tom Harris. Mike didn't know the man personally, but he knew his type, a manager who saw control as power, who ruled by intimidation rather than leadership. Inside the room, the silence stretched for a moment before a voice, quieter, hesitant, finally spoke. I'm doing my best, Emily said, her tone tight but composed. Her words were met with a scoff. Your best? Tom snapped. Your best isn't enough. I don't care how long you've been here. If you keep making mistakes, I'll start cutting your shifts. Maybe then you'll learn to pay attention. There was a pause, just long enough for the weight of the threat to settle in. I understand, Emily murmured. Mike could picture the scene even without seeing it. The slight slump of her shoulders, the way she probably kept her hands close to her apron, trying to steady herself. Tom huffed, his voice closer now, as if he had stepped toward her. You understand, huh? He mocked. Then why does it keep happening? Do I need to find someone else for that register? There was no reply this time, just silence. The kind that came from a person knowing they had no good answer, knowing that whatever they said would only make things worse. Mike's fingers curled into a fist at his side. He had been in Emily's position once, young, working under someone who thought their title gave them the right to humiliate others. It was a familiar cycle. An employee trying to do their job, a manager using fear to keep them in check. And the worst part? No one ever spoke up. He turned on his heel and walked back toward the dining area. He had heard enough. At the table, Jake was already digging into his fries, oblivious to the shift in his father's mood. Mike sat down, his eyes trailing back toward the counter, where Emily had returned to her station. She moved quickly, efficiently, but her hands trembled slightly as she took orders. Tom, meanwhile, stood a few feet away, surveying the restaurant like a hawk. He didn't do anything, just stood there, watching. His posture alone was enough to keep the staff on edge. Mike took his time eating, though his appetite had faded. He kept observing. He noticed how every time Tom moved, employees stiffened. How no one looked at him directly, instead keeping their gazes fixed on their tasks. Emily, despite her best efforts to maintain her composure, was distracted. Once, she reached for a receipt, but knocked over a stack of trays in the process. Tom turned immediately, his expression darkening. Mike watched as Emily quickly bent down to pick them up, muttering a quiet sorry. Tom didn't yell this time, but his glare said enough. Mike leaned back in his seat, letting out a slow breath. This wasn't just one bad exchange in a break room. This was a pattern, a culture fear. And then something caught his eye. Tom stepped behind the register, opening the cash drawer as if checking something. But instead of simply counting, he reached in and pulled out a few bills. Mike frowned. Tom closed the drawer casually, tucking the money into his palm before slipping away toward his office. It was quick, subtle, but not subtle enough. Mike tightened his grip around his drink, his eyes narrowing. So this wasn't just about bad management. There was something more going on here. Moral of the story. This story isn't just about taking down corrupt managers or fixing a broken system. It's about something bigger. The power of leadership, the courage to stand up, and the responsibility of those in charge to protect the people who keep a business running. True success isn't measured in profits alone, but in the way people are treated. So, what would you do if you saw injustice right in front of you? Would you speak up, or would you walk away? Remember, change starts with one voice, one decision, and the courage to do what's right,